We now call the meeting to order this evening. We now pay attention to the clerk to do the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla?
Here.
Commissioner Rippon?
Here.
Commissioner Cook?
Here.
Commissioner Archer?
Here.
Councilmember Hiller? Here. Councilmember Clear?
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz? Councilmember Emerson? Councilmember Padilla? Councilmember Jensen? Councilmember Mays?
Here.
Councilmember Cohen?
Here.
And Councilmember Lesser.
Here.
Having the roll call, we now move on to the action items. The first action item and only action item this evening is approval of an incentive package. If Ms. Stapleton could present to the body.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. We've been working with an existing manufacturer, Project Blueberry, that's considering an expansion in our community. You have a memo in your packet. As is common with projects at the beginning of the process, we are under a non-disclosure agreement. However, I can share that this is a situation where a local company is in competition with other sites to be awarded the expansion. So this is an approval of incentive funding, which would help offset the cost and support the business case for the company to have this growth in Topeka and Shawnee County. The company is considering an expansion which would include plant equipment additions and improvement expenditures totaling $30 million. This is a performance-based incentive. It's proposed at up to $66,000, so funding is paid based upon completion of the investment commitment. Since submission to your packet, I would note that the Go Topeka Executive Board has approved the incentive request as outlined in the memo. I'll show these to you as well. It's not working now. There we go. And with your funding approval this evening, we will work with the company and council to outline the details of a formal contract, which would be presented at a future JEDO meeting. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Stapleton. Do we have any questions for the presenter? Deputy Mayor Clear.
I understand about the non-disclosure. I have a really big problem about voting for these when I know nothing about who it is. I mean, we're all elected officials, and we're entrusted with a lot more than the name of a company. And I understand, I mean, you're saying, trust me, you know, I'm doing my job, give me $6,000, but yet you're not trusting us with more information. So I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, and I'll vote for this, but in the future, I'm going to have to know more about this. Thank you.
If I may interject, one of the challenges that we have when we have private businesses coming and doing business with our community, this governing body and they can't control that. The challenge that we have is that they have their own set of parameters with which they work by, because automatically notifying or getting out into the community that there's somebody that's either expanding or coming into our community could mean a lot of competition and serious challenges. So we don't even get to decide who gets to know when these deals happen. It is actually established by the business until there is an agreement. But the wonderful thing is that this meeting allows us the opportunity to ask any question that we want without disclosing the name of how many employees, any depth of information that you want to ask. This is why you have your time available today for that.
And I understand that, but you might mention to them next time, you know, the people that you're asking for millions of dollars are going to have to know who you are. I mean, you don't have to disclose to the whole community, but I think disclosure to those that they are asking for these thousands of millions of dollars is only right.
Councilman Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to kind of go on record as saying, you know, $66,000 for a $30 million investment is a pretty good deal.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions for Ms. Stapleton? Commissioner Cook.
Thank you, Mayor De La Isla. I would agree with some of what Sandra Clear, Deputy Mayor Clear, has indicated in that this has been the pattern of practice of Shawnee County, of JEDO, of a non-disclosure, but it does place constraints on the public trust, and it does place constraints on the ability. These are tax dollars. These are public dollars. I believe that Commissioner Archer has railed for transparency in government and wanting to make sure that there's transparency in everything that's done and that there's no collusion or corruption that's in place. And so I'm sure that, you know, we have to make sure that it's clear what is being done and and how these incentives packages are being put together. But I would agree with Councilman Mays that $66,000 for a $30 million investment is a good return for. But on that, Barbara, could you walk through what the process is for the cost-benefit analysis and how we arrive for these determinations? Because there are certain factors that GoTopeka factors in to these offerings.
Certainly. Well, as you had mentioned, it's not only within Topeka and Shawnee County, but across the country that we are cautious in ensuring that we don't disclose an employer if they request that non-disclosure agreement. There are many factors, as Mayor De La Isla stated, including things like if they were to, not in this instance, but if they were to be looking to purchase property, the cost of that property could go up if someone knew who it was. It could mess with a real estate transaction. It could mess with a lot of different things. Employees may not know that there is expansion happening, and so they have to be able to have that too. So there's a lot of factors that are involved. It's not a practice that just occurs in Topeka and Shawnee County. It is a practice that occurs with incentives nationwide because of that, and even internationally as well. Secondarily, when we look at these, we do have incentive guidelines that we follow with any incentives that we offer, and we base those off of several different factors within the community. We don't publish those incentive guidelines, although I would be happy to share them with each and every one of you. The reason why we don't is because we could have competition from another community trying to counter what our offers would be. So if we put out our calculations, then they're able to calculate the same offer or improve the offer. It's not because we don't want to be transparent. We definitely want to be transparent. We'd be happy to communicate those individually as well.
Commissioner Archer.
Well, first of all, for Commissioner Cook, there was no collusion. But second, it is important to be transparent. I remember when JEDO meetings were held in private, all the meetings were in private, and then we brought them here so the public could participate, and I think that's important. But we're giving GoTopeka $5 million a year to do the research, to be credible, and to be responsible for incentives that we give to businesses. And I understand them not wanting it broadcast, for competition, for their employees, and for many, many reasons why they don't want it out. But we have confidence in GoTopeka. We continue to re-enlist them for our experts. So all things considered, I think investing $66,000 to get a $30 million return is a good deal for our community. So,
And that's why they are performance-based. We
Yes.
would not pay those incentives out if they didn't meet the requirements. That will be put forth in the contract that we'll also present to you before they are able to qualify for the funding that you're approving this evening.
And I will add that in addition to that, we do have a clawback clause.
Because they're performance-based.
Oh, because they're performance-based, we
it's
don't have
pay
that
for
anymore?
performance. So, yeah.
Thank you for that correction. Councilman Lesser.
The only thing, Barbara, thank you. The only question I have, it's just more of a question in regards to, tell me about how the due diligence is done in regards to existing companies that exist in the community. For instance, Goodyear, and if a tire manufacturer was going to come in to open a plant, how do you guys balance that with an existing business in the community that's rooted? Just, you might want to just talk a little bit about that, because that was always the only concern I really had, was how do we balance those two things, bringing new in while at the same time providing, for our good homegrown companies that we're going to be in competition with those companies getting incentives.
Certainly. Well, and this one is a current local employer that we have. So in terms of that balance, we have, several different legs of that economic development stool. You hear from Molly as well related to business attraction. We do take into consideration what our target industry should be, what we should be considering in terms of our population and in terms of the education and training that's needed for any of those positions. We do that even with our existing businesses. So this is a business retention and expansion project, and we take into consideration how we can support our existing businesses. I think you've heard one of my former colleagues indicate, you can invite them to the dance, but you've got to also continue to dance with them when they're there and make sure that they're, enjoying the party. And so we want our employers that are existing here to know that they feel welcomed and know that we want to continue to help them grow and expand locally. And so that's we take into consideration a lot of different factors related to that, knowing that we have, conversations and meet with our existing businesses regularly to make sure that we're meeting those needs and understanding what their employment needs are and the training that they have that's available. And are we, supporting them locally to continue to grow and succeed in the community? So it's a balance between those things. Does that answer?
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you both. I appreciate the discussion about both issues. I too think 66,000 is a pretty good deal. But since we're talking about the issue of that confidential information, I think this is a good conversation to be having. We haven't had it as a body of JEDO in a long time, and perhaps it's timely. And just to clarify that what can be shared with us individually, we have a lot of responsibility as elected officials about issues like this and others in appreciating confidentiality when it's there, but periodically, maybe as a body anyway, we need to be reminded. But further, in the one-on-ones in the past, and I'll just jump way back behind anybody who's working here today, I'm not sure they released the name of the company per se, but by having a confidential discussion, you could ask enough questions about how this company operated, whether it was from out of town or local, all the questions that maybe the name of the company never passed, but we as elected officials could know enough that we felt confident about what we were talking about. The deals aren't always as clear as this one. And it used to be, the county gets credit for the clawbacks because for a long time, those deals just gave money and we weren't clawing back. So this is good. So just further conversations and making sure that we are the ones who are accountable for these votes. And so making sure as easily as possible, everybody's got a limited amount of time too, I know. But that can be helpful to prepare us.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rippon.
Barbara, thanks for your presentation. Can you tell us how many jobs this will create, this new expansion?
So this is a little bit different than some of the incentive projects that you may see. Oftentimes you do see both capital investment as well as jobs. This particular one, and this does happen with existing businesses, this is a capital investment only. So while there would be some jobs that would be related to I don't want to say construction, but when they're doing the improvement expenditures within their facility, there would be some maybe construction or contractor type positions. But this is not based on jobs dollars for this particular
There
project.
will be, of course, building expansion or whatever.
It's within their existing footprint.
I can't think of a company I wouldn't want to help here in Topeka that has this kind of capital to put into our economy, and it just seems like a bargain to me. So I like it.
Thank you.
We have had discussion. Is there the interest of anybody in the body to
Motion to approve.
thank you for your motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Archer. If there's no further discussion, I have been informed that we are supposed to roll call the vote. So if the clerk would be so kind. Oh, and before we proceed with voting, I just had, if you saw me messaging, I was communicating with Councilman Emerson, and he has approved Councilwoman Hiller to be his proxy this evening.
I don't know that you can do that from the beach.
Mayor De La Isla,
Aye.
Commissioner Rippon,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Archer,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Clear,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lesser.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, and we now have an approval for Project Blueberry. There is no public comment this evening, and we have, the final item is some reminders. Wednesday, May 8th is the next JEDO meeting. to be followed by September 11th and December 11th. We always encourage every single member of both bodies to participate in these meetings as they are extremely important to the economic development of our community. Being no other items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.